For me specifically, I'm interested in this three-pronged sense of translation. So right now I'm working on the Yiddish translators of the Harlem Renaissance. So from about 1926 to 1936, a lot of African American poetry written in the United States is translated into Yiddish. And it's published first in New York, in the United States, close to the center of its production, but then all of a sudden it migrates to Eastern Europe. And so you find editions of African American poetry in Moscow, and you find them in Bucharest, in Warsaw, in Berlin, and it becomes, alongside African American culture in France and elsewhere, a kind of cultural curiosity for Yiddish-speaking readers. Now, as a scholar of Yiddish, what's fascinating about this process of studying these translations of black poetry into Yiddish is that I really understand the English better than I do the Yiddish. However, because African American poetry is couched as an expression of black subjectivity, as an American reader, as a white American reader, it's hard for me to convince myself that, well, I can fully access and fully understand black poetry even if my native tongue is English. So my impulse to reread these poems in Yiddish, a language I learned only later, is also about trying to reread the English, the culture that I actually am a product of. So for me, I'm working on kind of this theory, is that there's so much in Yiddish that was translated from English. So what does it mean as an American Jewish scholar to read American literature in Yiddish? That's kind of the question I'm having, that I'm dealing with right now and that I haven't worked out. But you see in the Soviet Union, Mark Twain is translated into Yiddish. So if you've ever read Twain, I'm sure you have, even in high school, you know that Mark Twain is a virtuoso when it comes to the different levels of diction in American English and the different dialects of American English. Not only black dialects and white dialects, but class differences in a Bakhtinian sense. There's a heteroglossia to Twain that doesn't, that's famous. So how exactly does a Yiddish translator, who may or may not know English, transform these novels into Yiddish literature? I'm working on that right now. I don't have a great sense of it, but I do know that in the 20s, Mark Twain was very popular in the Soviet Union, in Russian and in English. I also know that other American writers like Jack London and all, they were all translated into Yiddish for Eastern European Jewish readers. And how do we talk about that? Is a question for me as a scholar of American Jewish culture. Can we look at American culture outside of the borders of the United States and say something new about Yiddish, or something new about even American Jewish literature?